I sent you some of this.
All right. All good to go over here?
Okay. Do this in then.
So the folks do see us, I think, or rather hear us, I think.
Should,
Hopefully
hopefully.
now. Yep, we're
And there's image as well.
here. Let's just check there. Yep, we're all good.
Right.
So, welcome to another live stream then. Today, as usual, we've got a few of us here. There's TheYamiks and Paroxsym. DJ Truthstairs, who's often with us, is over at TwitchCon. Exidious, we're not sure about, but yeah, we're three of us here, and we're talking about Chapter 4. And as we know, it's bringing a bunch of changes. We've already seen and discussed a lot of the exploration stuff. And what we're going to talk about today is the background simulation changes that are coming with Chapter 4, in addition to some of the new scenarios. And now, I can only talk for myself here, but I'm far from a background sim expert. I know almost nothing about it. I don't know about TheYamiks. Paroxsym does know about it fairly extensively, I believe. But to really get them to the meat of these changes and to get the most out of the live stream, I've invited a couple of guests on. I guess you could call them background sim experts. So we've got Vingtetun here from Hutton Truckers and Orange Spark from Galactic Academy.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hello. So perhaps we could start with you guys giving us a little bit of background on yourselves. Could we start with you, Vin? Would you mind giving us a bit of background on yourself and Elite?
Okay, well, yes, I'm Vingtetun, also known as Vin or David to those that know me really well. I'm part of the really silly crew that came up with the idea for the Hutton Mug and the Hutton Orbital Truckers back 3 years and about a month and a bit ago. And we started at the radio station at the time as well to keep everybody company while they were playing along with each other. We were persuaded by the dastardly Don himself to start up a player faction based in Alpha Centauri, which, looking back on it, was probably, if it hadn't been for the Hutton Orbital being there, probably the stupidest place to put a player faction right next to Sol. And from there, we've grown to a group of about 2,500 commanders, of which I think 250 odd are sort of day-to-day BGS players. It is their sort of their reason for playing the game. It's what they do each and every day, rather than being a bit of a lone wolf. And the rest of the team dip in and dip out whenever we have events or any particular fun going on. And I've been a fan and a player of Elite right from back in the early 1980s, and constantly watching their website for news of Elite 4 until the alpha backing option came out, which I duly backed. Also do a bit of work with HCS voice packs, doing the Cecil voice pack, and all sorts of other bits and bobs in the game.
Cool. And Orange Spark from Galactic Academy.
Hi. I'm not gonna explain in as much detail as 21 did. Hi, I'm Orange Spark. I am the captain of the Galactic Academy, an initiative that helps new and more experienced players learn more about the game. I joined around the time Power Play got added to the game, and shortly thereafter found the Academy, where I worked my way up. And have been loving it ever since.
Cool. Today we're going to talk a bit about the background sim then, and really I think we could perhaps start with giving a little bit of background information on the simulation as it stands right now, and then we go on to talk about what the changes will mean for the game and what it will mean for both perhaps small groups as well as some of the larger groups. Because obviously it's probably going to be far-reaching, it's going to be wide-reaching. I think it's going to affect pretty much every player, even those who aren't in groups, even those who like to go around and play the lone wolf style. But it's probably going to affect different people in different ways, so I think that's something that we can talk about. Vin, would you like to give a bit of background on, or an explanation for people on what the is all about?
Well, I mean, the original concept as sort of designed by Frontier in the first place on the background sim, it was very much the background being the important word. Every action any player does, he does not just for people who play the background sim. It's not a separate game. It's not a mini game within there. Every action you do in the game does something to the systems you fly through and the factions in those systems. So not just the missions you take, but the combat you do, the bonds you hand in war zones, the exploration you do and you hand in the data. All of these things have an effect on the various factions in a system, of which there can be 4, there can be up to 7. I think occasionally it gets up to about 8. And these factions, some of them own the system, some of them own the assets in the system. They own the bases you dock at, or the planets you land on, and they are the mission givers when you accept the missions. And everything you do affects them positively or negatively. So if you're blowing loads of things up, doing a lot of crime, it can hurt them and it changes their influence in a system. So these sort of 4, 5, 6, whatever they are, factions in a system, they wax and wane as players do various bits of activity. Some of the factions are tied to the superpowers. So some of them are federal, some of them are imperial, but they're also tied in many cases to the power play factions as well. So yeah, you fly around doing your thing. You're actually taking part in the BGS. Now, early on in the game, players realized that there was an opportunity. Well, I quite like those guys there, and I want to be part of it. So they started deliberately helping and boosting factions they liked. To whether they knew them from days of old in some of the earlier games, or they just loved the really silly names some of them have. They decided to back them and take over systems, and they started working out, without any hints from Frontier, that you could expand, you could move into other systems, you could create wars and elections. You suffered with famines and outbreaks, and it became a game for a lot of people. So some people like the lone wolf thing, just doing their own thing, bimbling around the galaxy. Some people, when they log on, like having a reason to play, and these factions and the missions given out and the text surrounding them gives a lot of players a reason to log in every single day and have fun, effectively playing a giant game of space Risk. So that's a bit of the history where it started up. Then player groups were allowed, and you could create and adopt your own factions. So, for example, the Hutton Orbital Truckers, we applied to have that put into game, which we were in a particular system, Alpha Centauri, because that's where Hutton Orbital was, and that's sort of under our ownership. The only way you can tie your name to a faction is by helping them. To date, and this is hopefully going to be changing when we hear more about things like squadrons, we don't know yet, you can't really tie your name to it. You can't have it on your ship, I am a Hutton Trucker. Some people put tags in their ship labels, but really being part of a faction involves helping the people that you feel aligned to, and it gives people a sense of identity in the game, those people who don't want to just be a lone player, and they start helping this faction. You've then got a whole group of people decided to start developing apps using the journal. So when the journal came out, people started using the plugins there to harvest data on what people were doing and to help them create instructions, daily mission boards, and understand what's going on under this sheet, because they've never really exposed the inner mechanics of the background sim. It is very much have to work it out as you go along yourself. So what kind of activity has this action, and how do I take over this system? We've had to learn it from scratch ourselves, from the ground up. So I mean that's a little bit of the history on the background sim. Now they're changing it all in a manner of a month and a bit, a couple of months. What is it? Soon. Trademarks.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that for me that's the background on how we see it. As a result, we've managed to, I think we've taken over about 20 systems now right next to Sol, and a lot of people, we've got custodians looking after each system, and they know what they need to do in any given day. So if, for instance, we're in Boom, we start doing a lot of trading and a lot of Boom related missions to raise our influence. If our influence is too high, we deliberately don't do anything so we don't expand, because we're not trying to expand even more, because that's just hard work. If there's a lot of crime in the system, so a lot of people are getting federal ranking from Sol, and they get a lot of missions to our space to attack people, we end up with a lot of crime. So we have to get ourselves out of things like lockdown and civil unrest by doing a lot of bounty hunting and handing them in at our systems. And the team are getting fairly good at managing it to within 1% here or there on a daily basis as to what we need. So we've got the hang of it now. Of course, that's all going to change in a few weeks.
Okay, so all those different states that you mentioned there, they have advantages and disadvantages for the respective factions, don't they?
Yes, so they also affect the system itself and what's in the system. So it's not just for the players who enjoy BGS. It's actually the the content in that system, the missions available, the USSs, the in-system chatter, which at the moment is just text, but we're hoping that's going to change to some voice stuff with scenarios, which I think we'll talk about later.
Yeah, definitely. We'll at least mention a little bit of it, so why not?
Yeah, so I mean, do you want me to go into detail, or do you want me to hand over to Orange Spark a bit? And I can stand on my soapbox for ages talking about a lot of detail on this if you want, but I get a bit geeky about it.
Well, here's the thing: is that we really want to talk about the old BGS quote unquote versus new BGS quote unquote, and I'm personally interested to get your thoughts and feelings on the new system and the changes that are being implemented. As I know how I feel about a lot of it, but someone who's got a much larger group, I'd like to get your perspective.
Okay, well, there are a number of things that are broken on the BGS that are very difficult for player groups, and I see a lot of the changes they're putting in as ways to fix some of the things that we find really, really frustrating. And to go into that, go into a bit of detail. For example, war. At the moment, if you equalize your faction's influence with another faction, you go into a pending war state, which means war's going to be happening in about 3 days. So there's this sort of 3-day advance notice that war's going to happen, at which point your entire team goes mad, bonkers, crazy, boosts your influence through the roof, and then you sit back during the war and don't actually take part in war. And that's been one of the bugbears for us, that war should be about combat and doing war missions. It shouldn't be about dropping squillions of credits of data in the 3 days before the war to win it and then putting your feet up. So
Which will now be the case.
sorry.
Which will probably now be the case. Like, they made war an active thing again.
Yeah, I mean that's one major thing they've addressed. So they've changed war from 3 days of pending and 3 days of active war to, I think it's a 7-day conflict. Where what they're actually doing is they're locking the influence levels. So at the point you enter war, they lock your influence levels with the other faction, and then you've got to win the right number of days. So there are 7 days of war now, and it adds up how many days has your faction won, and at the end of it, it then applies the results of that to the system rather than it happening in the pending phase. So that's a big change, which means war can be about combat zones, it can be about scenarios, and it can be about war-related missions, which is a big change. We try and avoid war. Elections are much more friendly, but it means that conflict is actually conflict, and that's a big improvement, a really big improvement. I'm looking forward in beta to seeing how that actually works. But yeah, getting rid of this pending phase thing for war when you can win is a really positive change.
Well, on my side, then, I actually got two rather, well, simple questions, I suppose, but, right, so the first one, of course, comes with the BGS and well, the second one, technically it is, but whatever. Warren, a week of it. Well, the last time developers did push out something that was related to something for a week. Let's see. It had to. Oh, right. Those are the CGs, which, in general terms, a good thing, but unfortunately got really boring really quickly. And the second thing was the power play. For a week, you do something, and then it basically either degrades your status in the fucking faction, power, what else. And of course, does change whatever you do within the power play. Now, I don't know. The whole weekly advances, well, yeah, I know on one way.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's still a week. I mean, because it's a week at the moment. It's just 3 days of it is not in war, and 3 days of it is. So, in terms of the length of a war, it's no change. But what they're doing is removing the toxic element, where you can. If it was a player versus player group, it's who can drop the most data, not who can blow the most ships up. So that they're removing, from what I can tell, that sort of 3 days worth of face roll and win it. So there's no change there in terms of the underlying length of a war or affecting a system.
All right, fair enough. But then on the opposite side, then if you, for example, want to advance as fast as possible and just steamroll everything, you're basically limited by the system. That can be viewed in a good and bad way, honestly. I've seen both sides of the thing, but honestly, steamrolling actually should be given more of a preference, to be frank, because there are plenty of systems that are, well, kind of worthless, and you just simply need to take them. But now you basically need to go through the whole week of war, and well,
Well, once again, same as it always has been. You still have to go
Yeah.
through your 7 days, even if you just got your feet up for 6 of them.
I mean, they could have changed it a little bit if you reach, I don't know, the wind state or something like that, just overwhelmingly destroy your enemy, whatnot else within the conflict zones and whatnot else. Yeah, well,
Yeah, well,
why
we
just
don't
not
know any
give the thing?
Sorry, my fault
go for
talking
it.
to you. Well, we don't know anything about things like the coup state. So there is an influence-based state where you reach a high enough influence in a system that you go into a coup state and take it over. That's not been mentioned yet under the conflict side of things. So that's one of the bits we're going to have to research, whether you can completely steamroller them if you've got 75% and they've got 2% at the point you start. So we don't know how that's going to work yet, and that's something that's still obscured, and we have to learn about in beta.
And the second part for me was, well, this is kind of a lead-on question further on, I suppose. Well, to give others, I suppose, the opportunity to just rant and whatnot else, your thoughts on the BGS and the fact that we have multiple modes. Well, generally speaking, your thoughts. No? Okay, well, to give you...
I was hoping Orange, you see, rather than me talking too much. Orange was going to jump in there, Otherwise, it's just me talking a lot.
Yeah, no, sorry, I got messaged by somebody and was quickly dealing with something.
Essentially, you didn't pay attention. Great. So, repeating
Yes.
the question, your thoughts on the BGS and this game, Elite Dangerous, having multiple modes, allowing players to basically cheese their way on top by doing things in solo and private. I personally have gone on record multiple times saying that if I had to choose one game mode to just have and just dump the rest, it would be open only, and I still hold my opinion on that BGS should be in open as well, and everything else should be open as well, because, well, that's my opinion, and yeah.
While idealistically I share your opinion on that, as in open to me looks to be the preferred method of play. It is also still worth considering that solo and private group are there for a valid reason.
Explain.
Some person may just want to be the hero of their own story. They just might wanna play alone. They take solo, maybe they take private group if they want to play with friends. Some people have a really bad internet connection connecting to open. I have a couple of friends for whom this is the case. They disrupt would be the best. They basically disrupt the instances of most people they're in with horrible rubber banding. Because of this, these players also prefer solo because it makes the game more playable for them. You can say that that's a problem on their end, but I don't think they should be negatively impacted because of that. And
well, one would say that for an online game, you'd think that you need internet to play it, right? Elite is an online game.
That is true.
I think there's also that element there, isn't there, for the console players? I know it's definitely this way on the PlayStation. I'm not sure about the Xbox, but
is it?
You can play Elite in solo mode without the monthly subscription to Sony.
Oh right,
but if you want to go into open mode, it's £6-7 or a month, whatever it is.
From Hutton's point of view, obviously the group was set up for PWP, playing with other players, but it's a very inclusive group, and playing things like the BGS. People who prefer to play in solo, who just of an evening want to spend their time versus the computer, and there are people who don't enjoy the interaction with other people. it creates a way against a common universe for people to play the way they want. I know it's an oft-used phrase, but it's inclusive. You want to play that way, knock yourself out. You want to come and join us in a private group for a race up a volcano. No plugs allowed here, but yeah, you can do that in your private group, or you can go into open and do it. And as we did for the race 2 years ago, and have the SDC turn up and try and blow up the racers on the race course. And the guys finished up there saying, "My God, that was the most fun I've ever had in a game." Actually, arriving at a planetary base under fire from somebody with spaceships raining down from the sky. That's what rang, Timmy, who won the cup that year. That's what rang his bell, doing it in an open environment with the risk. If you make it open only, you're not inclusive. You're cutting out a load of the player base. They're going to help pay for the game, help pay for the development of the game, and enjoy it. Now, these people still take part. They take part in the streams. They're on TeamSpeak. They're in Discord channels. So they're playing along with us. They just happen to prefer playing it in, a solo environment with the only enemy visible is actually the NPC. But
Some would call it a pussy mode. But no, I do that myself. So
sometimes of an evening you really don't fancy some guy coming on. I was on the other day, and Nitech, who's well-known former SDC, possibly, or I think he's SDC, saw me streaming and said, "You're in open." It was a case of, yeah, I know why you're asking me that question. No, I'm not in open, because I am not in the mood for those kind of shenanigans today. But Saturday, if you're about, I'm more than happy. And it was to suit my mood.
All right.
Now, getting back on the topic of what this has to do with the BGS, I would be in favor of getting diminished returns on stuff you got in, say, solo or private mode. Yes, it is a tad unfair towards those players. But
yeah, I mean the addition of the improvement of conflict, for instance. One of the problems at the moment is the theory from people complaining about it is that someone in solo can go into solo and they can completely face roll a system on their own. And we've actually proved it's possible that actually if you're trying to destroy influence in a system as a solo player, it's really, really, really easy, and it's actually relatively unstoppable if somebody knows what they're doing. And people can do that in solo, which means you can't oppose them. And I'm hoping one of the changes they've got coming here with the happiness, but being in war in more than one system, and the changes are that one person's effect isn't going to be that rapidly effective. And that's one of the things I'm hoping we can see when we start looking at it when the beta lands, is that it becomes about attrition, not about one person face rolling it 25% swing in one day. If they remove the ability of people in solo on their own to do that, then you're removing the argument that solo is a bad thing in the BGS, because people, even if they're hiding in there, it's one of the many inputs into the system.
All right. Paroxsym, you had something?
Right, okay. I wanted to ask you guys about this to see how... kind of like get your thoughts on this one, because right now my faction, we use what we call leapfrogging to help us expand more quickly. Our faction has only been in the game since about the beginning of May this year, but we're already in 10 systems and control the vast majority. I think there's only 1 or 2 that we don't. And what we've been using to help accelerate our expansion is to line up a war to start like the day, maybe 2 days after an expansion goes pending, and cut off, to cut that expansion period, from, what is it, 5 to 7 days down to like 2, and, rinse and repeat this process over and over and over again. And because we're basically using the cooldown and pending states, all that kind of stuff, to our advantage to just kind of leapfrog our way across the galaxy. Do you guys do the same thing? What's going to happen with... Because it doesn't look like, at least at the moment, that pending and cooldowns are going to be a thing with states anymore, at least not from what I saw on yesterday's stream. How do you think that's going to affect the way factions go about their business in the future?
21.
Well, We've actually used it for retreat over in Colonia because we kept expanding into places that were full of other people. And as per our charter, we don't bother attacking other nearby groups. So we've had to use that same early trigger to try and force out retreats, force them to start early or complete early, so that we can get out of places. So, but I mean, retreat's just the same as an expansion, just in the opposite direction. I mean, the whole expansion mechanic's changing based on happiness now. And it's happiness across your whole set of systems, from what I understand, not just the one system where you've hit 75% for expansion. So you've actually got to have your whole population happy, I think, as I'm reading it, in order to expand, and you'll expand from the happiest location now. So I think there's been quite a change gone through in how expansion's working. Whether you can still trigger it, well, you can be in multiple states now. So theoretically, as I understand, you can be in expansion and war at the same time. So that they've been disconnected. They're not exclusive. It's either A or B. So the multiple states thing, I think, should prevent the use of other states to trigger things early, because you can have multiple.
Oh, and speaking of multiple states, that one's going to be a challenge for us because 10 systems is going to be a lot to micromanage. Now you guys have 20, especially with the prospect of multiple wars running simultaneously. How is that going to affect you guys? I know for us that's going to make life very interesting, especially if we get into conflict with, say, like another player group.
Well, we about probably 6 months ago, because it was 20 systems was quite a lot. It was getting fairly unmanageable, and we were burning people out. The senior BGS team are burning out fairly quickly. Nocti was looking after it for us for ages, and his predecessor as well. So we actually put in this concept because we've got a large group of system custodians. So there's somebody looking after each system, and they can call for help as needed. So we've already sort of preempted this a little bit, not that we knew it was going to happen, but so we've got a team for each system, and they're more than enough to be able to swing it and drag in others if they need to. So we're already looking after it on a system by system basis rather than just a global view. So I think we're fairly lucky that we're fairly well prepped for this one.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, Vin, actually you had a bunch of things you wanted to say additionally, so I mean, you got the floor.
We can do, as long as you guys aren't bored of too much of my voice.
Go.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, no, this is great.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, with the system custodians, so the way we're working it at the moment is that they're monitoring their numbers using the plugin, using the Hutton Helper plugin, which is one of these ones for EDMC that feeds data back to the central server, and we've got a control panel. It's visible for everybody. That monitors our top trucker who's done the most that week, so we can hand out rewards. But it also allows us to keep an eye on, oh, somebody's dropped way too much there and we're in danger of expanding. We don't want to. So we've got those numbers coming into a control panel for us. And we've spent a lot of time with each of the custodians looking at it, so saying, okay, if this, then that. So if we've got an outbreak, for instance, let's all get rich. This drags me back to an earlier point about negative states aren't negative in the current game. So a famine's a good thing, and an outbreak is a really good thing, because it generates loads of missions that generate loads of influence and wealth as well. So at the moment, if you're an outbreak, well, hey, let's boost all our influence up. It looks like they are now tying this to this happiness rating, which means that outbreak and famine now become negative things, which can actually hurt your influence rather than help it, which is a big improvement.
Famine, a negative? My. Sorry.
Well, yeah. I mean, the trouble is, what it does is, at the moment, it very correctly generates missions. Oh my God, there's a famine. Let's bring loads of food. But the casual players in our area see loads of missions and surrounding systems saying, quick, take food to, I don't know, WISE-0855, which they do, which then massively boosts the owner, i.e. Hutton, which means it's a good thing. Whereas Boom's a boring state for us. We don't really see any gains during Boom. But we see a lot of gains during famine and outbreak. This, once again, is changing with the happiness rating, which is a good thing. So you've then got your civil unrest and your lockdown. Now, what was happening previously was that when you got into a state like war or your civil unrest, you get global states. So war being one typical example. When you had a war, it was a war in that one system, but it affected all your others. It stopped you raising any influence in other systems except by extreme hard work. And there was actually a toxic drain on those systems because only combat operations in the other systems helped boost you. Which meant all of your traders, all of your explorers, all of your mission hounds could do absolutely nothing in any one of your systems during war, which was a bad thing. So the actual split, so that a war is a local only thing, means the custodian of the system next door, LHS 340 for instance, if he needs to come and lend you a hand in Alpha Centauri, that's great. If not, he can just carry plodding on away at his own little system without that toxic erosion of your influence. So yeah, it's going to be hard to manage, and there's going to be a lot more granularity in it, but you're losing some of these really toxic states that damaged large player groups. So it's going to be harder to do well, but the toxic side of it is going to be curbed, which has got to be a positive thing as well.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously some good changes potentially there. And talking of changes, I'd like to ask you a bit about all the changes that have gone into the background simulation over the years. How much that kind of affects you guys who like to deal with the background simulation a lot, and does it take you much time to relearn it? I mean, obviously a lot of the background sim is quite opaque. You can't always see very clearly exactly what's going on, and I know that's something that Frontier are changing a little bit with Chapter 4. The idea is make it a little bit more clearer so you can see, so it's a bit more directed. But in the past, changes have gone in, and I don't think Frontier have always necessarily announced all of the changes. You find
They
out
have not.
after the fact, yeah. So, I mean, how do you guys go about that sort of thing? Orange?
So, yeah, here's the thing. The Galactic Academy, we have a minor faction, but we don't actively manage it. I've together with some mentors, I basically just learned how the BGS works. But like I only seldom practice it. So I can't say I've had much experience with this.
Well, I've got some examples of changes that were made very early on. People started working out when trading that if you started trading one item lots and lots in individual transactions, then you could massively affect the BGS. So it was an unexpected consequence of them, from what we understand, and they still use it at the moment, having a transactional approach rather than a value-based approach. And Frontier adjusted the system so that it skewed it based on the value of the trades. And there was one very clever guy on the forums who actually did a load of study on it and worked out that trading 200 of an item for 700 profit was the most effective way of changing the BGS after they switched off the single trade transaction side of things. So they've also made some subtle changes to the way you used to be able to go in and blow up loads of ships, and actually blowing up ships, not just handing in bounties or gaining the crimes, but just the act of blowing up ships had a huge effect. And it was a double effect, because if you committed a load of crime, you had a negativity on the faction because of the bounties issued, then also a negativity because you were blowing up a load of somebody else's ships, which sort of was like a double bubble on pushing people down, which I understand they capped. We only worked out they made a change trial and experiment, studying the shape of the sheet and how it changed without seeing the objects under it. So there was a bit of trial and error and learning involved, but for a lot of guys, that's the fun of the BGS, is sort of trying to unpick and learn the mechanics, the best route to winning.
Okay. I had a specific change that went in, but I've lost it.
Brain fart. Yay!
Yeah, complete brain fart.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you another example. Exploration data used to be you could game it by doing individual sales. You sell a planet at a time or one discovery at a time. I believe they changed it to selling a page at a time was now the way of doing it, rather than the whole lot of exploration data. So they've nerfed a little bit the ability just to sell system after system after doing one of these road to riches hunts. So now selling a page, I think, has the same effect as selling one system did on the previous. So they've made some subtle changes there to prevent sort of exploitative means of working the BGS.
Oh, here is a good thing. Civil liberty. What do you guys think that's going to be? I am curious. And then also, what's going to happen to the investment state? I don't know.
donation
you're
missions.
familiar with it.
Basically,
So-
donation missions probably.
Because
So-
investment state doesn't seem like it's going to be a thing anymore based on what I saw, but yet it's really important for some of the factions that happen to be out in the middle of frickin' nowhere.
So if I
Well,
still
that's the economic bar, is the investment stage. So that's the top end of the economic bar, above boom.
If I,
Investment is after a failed expansion.
Well, it is currently, yes, but it looks like for what they're saying, let's see their words, as the mark on the economic bar is pushed upwards, a faction can move into boom and then investment. So investment is the top happy state, and I'd imagine the USS's and missions will be relevant to investment. I don't know, I have no news on whether that's connected to expansion. I think they've moved it to be an economic state now, and the same with civil liberty, which didn't exist before. That's the top end of the security bar. So lockdown's the worst one, then civil unrest, and then civil liberty at the top.
Civil liberty, since it's so new, I'm almost wondering what sort of, is there going to be some kind of bonus, I wonder, about, like, if you manage to get into civil
Happiness.
liberty, like, is it going to be, well, I mean,
Happiness mainly.
besides happiness, but, like, is there going to be, like, some kind of economic side effect from that? That would be kind of neat.
well, the economic side effect, will probably also be in the missions that spawn. There may be a change. There may be a difference in like commodity market prices. I don't know if there is currently, but we might very well see once because of it.
There's certainly lockdown. All your services get shut down in your station, don't they? In
Yep.
civil unrest, there is a bonus to bounties. So when you hand bounties in, they have an increased effect because you're trying to beat the civil unrest, and you get a greater reward for handing in bounties. So civil liberty, don't know that. I mean, they apply modifiers to the actions that you do based on your states at the moment. So boom, trade. If you're in boom state, when you do trading, it has a big boost to your influence levels.
So it might be safe to think that saying stuff like lockdown, civil unrest will boost all combat actions, all positive combat actions, while things like civil liberty and all the positive, like security and happiness states, will boost trade.
All security. It's in the security bar, so you may find there is a faster police response. That you may find there is a more security about generally. You may find, I don't know, these hazardous res sites may not. I mean, I'm guessing here, but you may not get the hazardous res sites. You may just get normal res sites that have got cops in them. We don't know. We'll have to look into that one. But that's the kind of thing I would expect is an effect from the security bar on the actual security levels in the system.
Yeah.
If it's rich and you're doing well, you'd expect, people around and about just keeping the peace.
Also wonder if they're going to, say with like civil liberty, that would work well for, say, like a democracy type. But like my faction is a dictatorship. I'm thinking that civil obedience would be more appropriate for that one.
Yes, do as you're told, or else you're being sent to a gulag somewhere. Yeah,
exactly.
Yes. You communist! You dirty, dirty commie!
I mean, we might be a democracy, but we think we're more of a benevolent dictatorship over at Hutton.
Well, here
Alvin is
about
small,
UK.
very fluffy, yeah, and very, very cute. But we do what he says.
Something like Caligula making his horse emperor.
Fair enough. Right, my question from a side then. I tend to hate speculation, but, of course, there is a little bit of that suggestive power that can go into, describing things and what need to be improved. So my question really is, what you, as both BGS aficionados, would like to see changed that, well, of course, won't be changed right now, but what would you like to see changed in the future? What's the most needed thing for BGS right now?
Well, the most needed thing. Orange, you got something?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, personally, and this is strictly my opinion, I would like to see like the current transactional nature of BGS start to shift more like an effort-based thing. Like if you spend an hour in a conflict zone, it should do more than like going back and forth 10 times and killing 2 ships and handing them in, because the latter now does more.
Yeah, I agree on that one. Definitely, the removal of any kind of transactional based, or having it certainly swing more towards value based.
Just make effort over transaction. You know.
Yeah, and for me, one of the things, and we've modeled this in spreadsheets. We spoke to at the various events to Dav Stott from Frontier as well. The way influence is totted up at the moment, that if you're the owning faction, and all the factions you put in maximum effort for, so you put the same effort in for all 5 factions, the owning faction will actually drop because of the way maths works. So what it's doing is it's because you imagine 4 factions at, let's say it was a 5% effort versus one faction putting a capped effort, you can actually plummet people by working for 4 of the 5 factions, and the leader can't do any more to help because they've done the maximum because of these caps they put in. Which means that you can plummet an owning faction by supporting all of the other ones, and there's nothing the owning faction can do about it because there is a cap on this. So the cap is a little bit toxic when you get into some real deep BGS stuff. The cap's a little toxic in there, but the way the maths works, and a proposal we put across to them was, well, how about you do variance from the mean? So if the mean work done for all the factions was this, and your faction's above it, then theoretically you shouldn't drop. So we're looking at modeling an alternative way of doing the actual adding up of influence in systems, which then rewarded effort and removed the need for this cap a little bit. Yeah, you can still have overwhelming work done for one faction, but it's a variance from the average done across the others. So it becomes a game of attrition between factions, particularly in faction versus faction gameplay. So that you can I put in 200 million worth of credits here, they put in 190 million worth of credits. You'd expect the people who put in 200 million worth of credits to gain more, slightly more, or lose slightly less than the others. That's not the way it works at the moment, because if you've got a higher percentage, the way the maths works is that you actually drop even if you've done more work. So that's one that I'd love to see, but that's a really behind the scenes change on the way the maths is done. I'd love to see that, because in player group versus player group conflict, as we had with the EDF, who are now mostly friends with us, it gave an attacking player faction a massive advantage if they knew what they were doing, that you couldn't really counter. So I'd love to see some subtle behind the scenes changes on the way influence is added up and apportioned on the tick every single day, or as Dav puts it, approximately every 24 hours.
All right, Obsidian, hello.
Hello. So, yeah, totally unrelated to that, but another subject here on the economy. So, in my mind, Elite hasn't really got much of an economy, not much in the way of anything like that, is there? Trading is, exactly. I mean, it's simply picking up goods and moving it from one place to another. So just holding, basically. At least that's how I see it. But I do know, excuse me. I do know that the BGS does have an impact on the commodities that are available there, as well as prices. So could you guys talk a little bit about how you think, or how the BGS does affect the economy, or what you'd actually like to see?
So this is actually quite funny. Another one of the Galactic Academy's captains, a year or two back, he told me that he actually ran some sort of simulation. Like they collected loads of data over a period of time, and they actually found that the galactic economy, now say this is over a 2030 system range, was actually plummeting. Like, it was going down. Goods were worth less and less, and so were the profits. So there is an economy, just yeah.
Well, there was a time when the economy was more dynamic, and places started running out really quickly of stuff, and prices were wildly fluctuating. And I think they stomped on that. We're talking back possibly in beta,
That was quite some time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah, I'd love to see. I mean, Obsidian. Yes, you're absolutely right. I'd love to see a far more active economy. You know, you're more productive when the system's got more money. So when you're looking at a positive economic state, yeah, you'd be producing more things. You'd be, you know, things would cost less that you exported potentially. I would love to see a more dynamic economy. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, aside from technical reasons, perhaps at the moment, can you see any reason why it's not like that now?
Oh, I probably
is
can
there
guess.
some reasons gameplay it might not be like that? I mean, or is it purely down to the fact it's just not been implemented yet? Or what's your thoughts
I
on
can
that?
answer if need be,
What
but
do you
I'll
think?
go last. I'll go last then.
No, go on, Yamiks. It's your turn. It's your turn.
All right. So basically, the economy, why it's not dynamic, basically why it's not controlled by players. Right, so here's a little rant from yours truly. Now, of course, my opinions perhaps won't be the most correct ones, but hey, you never know, right? Realistically speaking, the dynamic economy is kind of hard to predict, so quite obviously, for debate and following on for the full game, developers chose to go the route of least fuck-upable thing, or least difficult thing, and well, obviously dynamic markets is not an easy thing to make, generally speaking, even on its own sort of a thing. So at this point, the simplest answer might be actually the right one, right? Occam's razor, I think it was the term, right? Yeah, right. Anyways, so basically that's the explanation that at least I can give you. It's just that it would be kind of hard to make it. It would take a lot of effort, and to fix it also would take a lot of effort. So that's sort of the problem with the markets. Of course, we would love a fucking dynamic market. I mean, at that point, you know, cargo would actually have some sort of a value. Right now, for me, I see basically just another game asset with different numbers on it. And that's all I see. Because I'm jaded as fuck. And here we go. So,
yeah, I think it was also previously in the testing, whether it was back in beta or the early days, open to exploitation. And it's so big and complex. You know, there are so many systems, so many markets, and so many states you can occupy. I think it would be massively open to exploitation by, you know, really clever people that will find the edge cases. If the edge case exists, you can trust the player base are gonna find it. So it is, because it's so big and complex, open to exploitation as well. Which is one of the things I'd love to see. Is obviously it's more mission based. The influence, in my view, should be far more mission based than transaction based. Whether it's trade, the trade should be dynamic in terms of the values of what you're buying and selling. But this whole sort of drop the bounties off, drop the exploration data off, or do transactional based trade should have less of an influence than the actual missions, because the missions are actually dynamic economy. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, because the missions obviously change depending on what's going on within that particular system and the factions.
If you're in boom time mission to deliver, you know, beer to wherever, Lave.
Yeah, and I know some people do take advantage of that as part of their mission running and trade running. That's how they make their money. Yeah. I mean, they'll go from one system where they're buying the stuff in boom, and they'll take it to another system that's. Where the product
and I think skewing it towards missions that then represented the economic change, as they do at the moment. So if someone's in famine, hey, let's take food to this place. That is sort of a representative marker of what that system needs. Yes, you've got the in-game tools and places like EDDB, where you can look up your trade routes, but the best indicator in game at the moment is got to be the mission saying bring this to there. And what I'd love to see is that reflected in the actual market there, the values paid in the market at the destination as well, not just the missions itself.
It's already somewhat the case, maybe just not enough. Like, yeah, I've tried it. I sometimes bring the same stuff that I'm hauling for a mission along, and they sell for a tidy profit. Like, I don't know what they sell for outside of the
Oh,
states,
during
but-
outbreak, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can make 3,000 credits a ton on some of the basic medicines as a profit. So you take a mission, but then you stock up on the basic medicines as well, and yeah, you can make a tidy profit. And of course, the mission gives you a hint that that place accepts basic medicines. So it's there. Maybe it's just doesn't feel dynamic enough. Maybe it just needs a big shining neon light on it saying, really trade this, guys, using some form of in-game comms, or whether it's your status in stations, that kind of thing.
And speaking of things not necessarily feeling dynamic enough, that brings up the BGS tick. Because like if you look at some of the station stuff, that stuff tends to update, every few minutes or once an hour, that kind of thing. But then the BGS stuff updates, only once a day. And I don't know if you've noticed recently, but the BGS tick has gotten super late in the day.
I remember one time when it was hitting just after midnight on UK time, and the team were sort of burning the midnight oil just to wait for the tick to come in and do the reports. So yeah, it's approximately once every 24 hours, but every time they do a server update or a server patch, it shifts it back by the length of the patch, which after release can shift it from sort of a 3 in the afternoon through to a 6 when they do the first point release, or not point release, the update bug fix, and then another couple of hours for the next one as well. So it's the thing is, they've always said it's never accurate. It's always approximately every 24 hours.
Yeah, but then what about moving the BGS system to say like an hourly update thing? Because it looks like that might actually be possible with the new, the slider system and all that kind of stuff.
Sliders,
It would
yeah.
make it easier.
Did anybody else pay more attention than me to the stream? And is that still going to be a daily update, or is that slider moving dynamically as you work?
I'm not really sure because they didn't really explain it, but it looks like with the new slider system, it would be possible for it to be far more dynamic than it is now.
So from what I heard is that, or what I understood from this, and like talking to people in direct messages, this like the bars, you'll see them move, or like you might see them move, but everything gets added up at the end of the day. But people say the tick, but the tick is actually, it moves like a wave, and different parts of the bubble get updated at different times, because I think it was 4,500 inhabited systems, give or take. Yeah, just try and put that all through a server at the same time. I'm no server engineer, but I wouldn't.
My snarky self would say that if they
I think
can't get more than 500 people in one fucking squadron, then expecting them to do an hourly update on BGS is a pipe dream there. But that's just me being very snarky right now.
Yeah, I mean the tick. I think the tick is still going to be representative for state changes. So it's going to be a once a day you change. It actually labels it, I am now in war. That will still happen at the tick. But if what you're saying is right, then the bar that shows you're heading that way, and so when the tick happens, you're going to go into war. That bar is dynamic. But then the actual change to war happens at the whatever it is your that particular system hits the tick point.
Do we make sense?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it makes sense to me.
So yeah, we're still going to get the daily changes. We're still going to get the big daily state changes between war and boom and whatever the other bits and bobs are.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing. Anyone? Sorry, I'll probably jump in the queue.
No. That's about it on my end.
Cool. So one thing that's happening with Chapter 4 is the new scenarios. Yeah.
We're moving into that. Okay.
Yeah, there we are.
Woohoo!
Well, one of them they showed was the attack on the mega ship. We also saw the changes to the conflict zones, where they're a bit more dynamic, and they have a win-lose state, which is a pretty big change there. And there's loads of, I don't know, I'd say loads, I don't know how many there's going to be, but there's other scenarios as well. So some little things where you can go to a system that's in famine, and you may find someone who's requesting some food from you, or you may come across someone who's needing fuel, and you can help them out there. So all of these things have an impact on the background simulation, and the game will be less obscure and will notify of you of the impact you've actually had. So if you successfully attack a megaship, it may have a negative effect on that system, for example. You actually will know what sort of effect you've had. So
I'm gonna stop you right there.
yeah, go on.
Not on
If
that,
I'm wrong.
not specifically on that system, only on that faction.
Oh, that faction,
Because
yeah.
there's multiple. There can be multiple in one
Multiple
system.
factions, yeah, of course. But the question was going to be, I wanted to put to you guys, is that obviously with those sort of scenarios coming in, I think personally there's going to be a lot more people starting to get involved in those sort of activities, whereas people before might not necessarily have always jumped into conflict zones, for example. I suspect a lot more people would actively go in there now just because they can influence that win-lose state. Same with all the random scenarios going around. So you're going to have people who are not necessarily interested in the background simulation going through system to system, and they're coming across a random USS and they may want to help someone out because they're out of fuel or whatever else is going on, or they may find a megaship that's under attack and decide to help that out. So I would imagine if you're getting more people doing that sort of things, it's a lot more going to have perhaps more of a chaotic impact on certain factions and systems. Would you agree?
Yes.
It's less coordinated. Yeah. Whereas at the moment you may have coordinated factions actually attacking another faction. You're now going to have dozens of players all doing their own thing, going about their own business. I know, all their actions already do influence the BGS now, but it'd be a bit more.
Yeah. So aside from these people already actually influencing the BGS, but probably in a much lesser way. Yes, this will become. I do think this will become more pronounced, and interest will. I think most probably rise.
I think it's going to raise the interest. At the moment, we've got USSs, and in fact, there are little. They're not quite scenarios, but there are little things. There are rescue ones where you can refuel ships. There are little scenarios in the USSs, but honestly speaking, can you really be bothered? Are they that interesting? Do you get that much reward from it? Not really at the moment. By injecting the voice acting and effectively a mission board in space, you can get missions while you're flying now, not just in your inbox, but by arriving somewhere, you've got something to do. So you don't have to go and dock to get a mission to go and do something. You can go there, and then the mission is actually generated for you at the point you arrive. So there becomes a reason to start, using this scanner, looking around, finding USSs and going there, because there might be something interesting there. That's then going to generate you a mission, which generates you a cash reward, but also an influence and reputation reward. So it's moving some of the mission stuff out of the station mission interface and into a voice-acted scenario instead. But it is, it's effectively mission boards in space with some nice voice acting.
And do you think that could have more of an impact on Hudson truckers, for example? Is it going to cause problems for you in that more people?
I mean, you have to assume that somebody's going to be in that system anyway to be able to find them. So they'll have come to, pick a system, Epsilon Indy as an example. You've come to Epsilon Indy for a reason anyway. So you're in the area, so you're already going to be affecting the BGS by whatever you're doing. I think it's just going to give you alternative to do things. However, if certain scenarios, let's say like the attack the megaship, they've injected a load of megaships and installations into the game with the new release as well, so there's a load more content in there. So at the moment, I think in 20 systems we've got one installation, a civilian installation in there. I think it's somewhere halfway to Hutton Orbital, and I'm not telling fibs to make people fly there. It's on the next planet over. You arrive near Aldin, and then the next planet over, there's one of these civilian installations, and there is currently already a terrorist group attack it when you arrive, and it creates a little scenario there. If that suddenly becomes more exciting to join in, then yes, more people are going to do it, because wow, look, there's one of theirs over there, and it's going to draw players like flies around BioWaste to certain areas. But what they've said is things like these megaships are going to be moving, and a lot of these content, the content-based megaships are going to be traveling on little routes and things. So they've injected them and they're moving around. So what you're not doing is dropping into a system a permanent way of attacking a faction or defending a faction. They are dynamically generated based on the state that you're in, and you can help or hurt. That's the other thing. in these new ones. You can choose either side. So yes, it will have an effect on the BGS, but I don't believe it's going to be always a negative effect and make it harder for player groups.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yamiks, I think you wanted to share your views on scenarios, yeah?
Right, so my cynical view now, the things that developers did showcase about scenarios, well, you know me, I'm gonna go and just say it's pretty much gonna be, it's gonna be bad, or it's gonna be boring, whatnot else, or it's a waste of time, whatnot else. Now, I mean, what they are doing is overly positive thing. Whether or not it, in general terms, is where the effort should be spent. Now, that's a whole different topic, so to speak. But well, okay, let's take the good old fuel refueling event thing that they showcased. Okay, so what developers said that, okay, you drop in the system, you see a distress call, and it has a timer on it. Now, of course, who carries fuel limpets beside fuel rats around with them all the time, everywhere? Well, I'd hazard a guess very few people, if at all. So, of course, there is the positive side that, yes, you are given a timer on that unidentified signal source, or, well, distress call, rather, to go to a system, pick up the thing, go back in, and then refuel it, because, well, you know that it's gonna still be there for a limited time and whatnot else, so you go do it. Additionally, on top of that, basically the refuel unidentified signal source random event, I call these basically random events because, well, they are random events, and now it's gonna be just simply voice acted and will be more persistent. Okay, is that really now called scenario? Just a spruced up unidentified signal source?
Well,
all right, well,
potentially you're creating it because you've got the rescue contact. I can actually see on Obsidian stream here. He's actually in a station at the moment, but you've got rescue contacts in there at the moment, and a potential role you could play in the game is as a rescue ship. So if you know these distress calls are out there, and there is a good frequency of them, along with I don't know, rescuing escape pods and those kind of missions, and there are enough of them being dynamically generated in space, along with missions as well, and we learn what states cause them, you've effectively got a rescue ship role you could be playing. Okay, you play a bounty hunter, you can play a trader. Theoretically, this is drawing you into areas of content that you might not have played before. It gives you another style of gameplay. Now, what I'm hoping when it comes in is it's frequent enough. There's, oh look, I'm seeing 1 in 50 is a distress call. You're absolutely right. Why should I bother fitting refuel and repair limpets? On the other hand, if the frequency is high enough and people learn how to find these things, you've actually got the ability to role play a rescue ship who rescues escape pods, refuels people, repairs people, and that creates a new style of gameplay for people who like that kind of activity. So I'm hoping they've thought about it that way, and I'm hoping they're creating it as a role you can play.
Like fuel ratting for a solo player.
Right? No, I mean, my problem is really not with the fact that it would create or not create something, what else, but there is already that gameplay in it. What they are doing is just sprucing it up and fleshing it out a little bit. That's literally all they are doing, and calling it a brand new feature is kind of disingenuous, to be honest, for me.
Well,
but
they're not saying it's brand new. They are fleshing it out, absolutely, and it's much needed, this additional flesh. And it's
mean,
not all
fine.
they're doing. I mean, all disparages their work. There's a lot gone into this, and it's not all. It's making it a richer environment. The USSs at the moment are as dull as ditchwater. They really are. I go to them if I want some materials. Really,
that's literally what they are for these days.
Yeah, that's what they're there for. If they can add me a reason to go there, where when I'm playing my game tomorrow, there's something different and interesting to do in them, I'll want to go do them, and it gives me more to do in my game time. So the fleshing out is massively needed. I think don't underestimate the amount of work that's got to do. Is that all they've done? No, it's an awful lot they've done, and it is really desperately needed.
I'd say sure, yeah. On that side, that okay, they are adding more things to existing random events. That's a nice thing, certainly. Though I don't know. I still remember DJ saying that it's gonna be the greatest thing ever for the game or something like that. You know how DJ is.
I share this opinion. It's gonna be great.
No. He's got it wrong. The greatest thing ever for the game is going to be blowing up rocks in mining when we get to see the next video.
I'm a miner.
That
we'll
noise
see.
is the
God
greatest
damn
thing.
it. Okay.
We'll
But that's
see.
not this week's topic, is it?
The scenario is basically in my mind again being fleshed out, already existing random events really goes down as well. Okay, it's gonna be fun for the first month, maybe.
Who says
two.
there won't be any
Do you
new ones?
remember? Yamiks, sorry.
Yes.
Just do you remember the first time you played? I'm assuming you didn't jump straight in. You may have gone to the training scenarios where that lady was talking you through.
Back in the day, I started the game right without any training, anything else. I don't think we had a proper tutorial anyways back then. I started basically a couple of months after the release, so yeah.
Yeah, but okay, but those things, and of course, I watch those and join in, and she's chatting to you while you're doing things, albeit, yes, it's a training mission, and then you go to a real one, and it's, that's disappointing. And what we're getting now is the fulfillment of that promise that was in the training missions to make it more interesting and
Sure.
have somebody.
I see that as a positive thing. Whether or not it was worth spending time on it, especially now that there are some more pressing issues with the game. But well, you got to push out new features. Of course, again, this is a cynical view.
Well, yeah, but doesn't it bring it a little bit closer to the voice-acted quest lines that you...
I don't need
ago?
voice-acted quest lines. I honestly just ask for comprehensive quests in general. Again,
Okay,
World of
but
Warcraft
then in
doesn't
that case,
have
doesn't it bring it a
voice-acted,
bit closer
right?
to that? Does it bring it a bit closer to that in your mind, or not really?
Even if
No.
just a
Is
step.
it a step
Voice
towards
acting
that?
doesn't create it. Again, a quest is a
It's
quest.
not just the voice-acted stuff, but the scenarios there. Doesn't it bring it a little bit closer to that?
Yeah, well, again, it might be good. The follow-up missions or whatever the devs kind of hinted at that there might be some sort of follow-up. I don't know. Maybe you guys can clarify. After all, you were, there when they presented this stuff to you, so you might convince me otherwise. But it's just. I mean, yeah, adding some more, random events to the game gives it a little bit more depth in some way, but I don't know. Positive overall, I can be kind of, but it's just I just can't but to see those stupid random events.
Come
That's
on,
all I
admit it,
will
you
say.
are looking forward to actually having a go with these changes, aren't you?
The most thing that I do want to try out is exploration probing, because I often just go everywhere seeking for nice places to film and so on and so forth, and oftentimes a good place is in the dark side of the fucking planet, so I ain't gonna wait for it. I might as well find another one. And finding, for example, lava spouts and so on and so forth are super hard. But now, with the probes, it will be quite different. As for everything else, I'm very concerned about squadrons. I'm very concerned about mining and exploration in general. So this patch in general for me is, I'm concerned.
Yeah, but there is so much in it that I mean, so for me, obviously, you can probably tell from all the talking I've been doing, the BGS and the content in certain systems is the bit that excites me and in our teams. Which is probably why I'm on the soapbox about it so much. But creating a more sort of dynamic living system for the player group. Squadrons, which obviously they're going to talk about. Is it next week or the week after?
Yeah, they've mentioned
Next
a little
week.
bit about that already.
Next
haven't
week.
they?
I'm
They've
hoping.
spoken
I
about
mean,
that briefly.
at its worst case, I'm hoping it isn't. There's no way they can tie squadrons to affecting the BGS too heavily, because then you get all your solo players really upset that they can't run their system without being in a squadron of one. Exactly. I know, but at the very least, I'm hoping it lets players who do play the BGS nail their colours to the mast and say, "I'm with them." I'm with whichever player group you want. The Mercs and McCoon, or Hutton, or Lave Radio, or the ADC. Oh no, they don't have a player group, do they? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think
Always
squadrons
join the
is
sequence
window
of
dressing.
Zen.
Yeah, squadrons will be window dressing for player groups to enable you to put your name on things. That's all I see it being, really, in a comms tool. But I mean, that's a discussion for after they tell us what's
Officially
actually coming
coming
out.
out,
But
yeah.
I'm
I actually
hoping.
have a bigger hope for squadrons, but then again, yeah, probably ain't
But
gonna happen.
I don't think, in talking about BGS this week, I don't think what we're going to see coming forwards from that is anything that's going to massively affect the BGS. It's going to be for players to enjoy tools, I think, to help them play together. Yeah, we shall see. We haven't had any hints yet about how they're or whether they're tying things to the BGS. I don't think they are, but
Squadrons is going to be interesting, but I have my concerns. But more on that another time.
yeah, it's certainly not like
Your NDA is kicking in.
No, I don't think it's going to be exciting content. I think it's going to be tools to play the game or tools to play with other people. I think the exciting content stuff, you're right, the mining, the exploration, and all of this, the scenarios, whatever, that's exciting content. I think that is. I'm expecting it to be sort of functional and useful, but not necessarily exciting. But that's
You're
just,
throwing
we'll
that
see.
word around like you're Ed.
Which word? There?
Exciting! Everything's so
I'm
exciting.
so grateful
God damn it.
everybody's here, and yes.
All
it's
the best
wonderful.
are here.
I mean,
just
talking about the
went-
exploration stuff there was one thing they very, very briefly showed it on stream when they were using the new exploration to find the signal source. Well, I can't remember whether, I think they were looking for the distress signal source. And there was that moment where they
It's got
just
its own
located-
little image, so yeah, that's how you find it. So you've got
That's-
images that mean Earth-likes and images that mean gas giants, and there's another image for distress signals.
signal sources, yeah. And there was that one moment
Signal
where they
sources.
just located the signals, and they were zooming back out using these discovery tools, and it was, I don't know if you noticed, because they literally only showed it for a few seconds, but it was like a multi-layered zoom out.
Oh yeah, it has
It was
different
zoomed out
levels
from
of
the
zoom.
USS, and then it zoomed out past the planets and its moons, and it zoomed out again until you saw a slightly better overview of the star system you were in. Until the final stage, you could literally see everything that was had been revealed to you within that system. Did
Yeah,
you
it
notice
looked
that?
quite
It was like
nice.
literally for about 2 or 3 seconds there.
Yeah, and then he did some dev magic, and they cut
They
straight
jumped
to
straight
the
to
destination.
the signal source. That's
And
the
which
one, yeah.
It was a
immediately
video.
caused their forums to go, "Oh my god, they're going to make us jump straight there." No, they're not, guys. He actually said, "I've cut this bit just for speed on showing it off." And
Yeah,
no,
that
we're
was-
not going to
that
jump
was a
straight to the
video.
USS's.
Yes,
Yeah,
so
that was a
someone-
video. But the forums latched onto, "Oh my god, it's going to ruin my immersion. You're going to jump straight there." And it's face palm territory there. Everybody reading the forums, pay attention.
Yeah, listen, pay attention. But I just thought it was a very, very nice touch there that they sort of only just showed the planet reveals or the planet discovery last time. I think it looks to me like they're waiting for people to work this out for themselves when it goes on
Well,
to the
what we
beta,
need to
because
find
this
is
will-
a couple of really regular YouTube streamers, right, who can go and test this kind of thing in beta and show it off. I don't know if you guys know any.
No, we'd have to keep
Well, I
an
mean, I'm
eye
going to
out,
be
I think.
streaming the heck out of that beta, so you know.
Yeah, the testing on that kind of thing is going to be really easy. You jump in, you have a look at it. The testing on the BGS stuff, my goodness. I tell you what, I don't envy the team who do the technical tools and all the stuff to do with the journals. I suspect there are going to be some massive changes to the journals. I know HCS have said they've got some updates pending, I think ready for when it's released for their, what do they call it, their singularity thing. So there's obviously a lot of work gone on behind the scenes on the journal and the interaction with journals on various tools. And I know the developers, whether it's on the exploration tools or on the BGS related ones like ours, are going to be spending 4 very busy weeks not only working out what data can we get, but how on earth do I present this to people to supplement what's in game.
Mm.
I don't envy them.
Oh,
Only
I
takes some-
definitely
some
don't envy
work.
the QA people. Oh my. In the industry, they are being fucked over, so, you know, just saying. Anyways, not implying anything here, by the way. That was just a random comment. Don't take anything of it. Right. On my part, now I wanted to ask a question to those of you that went to Frontier a while back and looked at the scenarios. Now, How much different was it from the stream that, or rather, how much different it was from what they showed us on the stream? What you saw, from what you saw on in that fucking thing?
What
Is there anything
specific
else you
account?
can add?
I don't know what we can say.
Well, I tell you what, there's one thing I can say, and I was waiting until they showed the stream. There was a piece of feedback that we managed to spot that they'd already spotted actually in their own QA when they were doing the demonstration of when you were finding gas giants. You know, you see the little symbols and things about what you saw on screen, and the free feeling of movement as we were moving a cursor around the screen. And it was one of the ones we gave them some feedback saying, "Oh, I can see it moving like the arrow moving, but you don't get a sense of moving on the screen." They quite clearly have fixed that between our visit and this latest reveal that they did, and improved it so that when you're moving the screen around and looking at it, there's more of a sense of movement. So little things like that. I mean, they'd already picked up on it, and it's something we commented on when we were actually in their offices, and they went, "Yeah, we thought that too." But you know, I was glad to see that you guys are spotting it from a user's, a gamer's point of view as well, and it's nice to see that they've found that, fixed it, and improved it. So there are little subtle improvements they've made interface wise since we were there, definitely.
Yeah, I think there's a few things like that. One of the other things, and this may or may not have been due to people picking it up during that visit, because people picked it up before. But I think with the discovery probes as well, they weren't infinite when we were there, were they? As far as I remember.
There were
I blame
250
DJ.
then?
You blame DJ.
Yes, blame DJ. He's not.
Yes,
here
let's
today.
do that. He's
Damn
not here.
you,
Let's
DJ.
shit on him.
Yeah, I mean, there was extensive debate around that one. I can't say we had much of an effect on what we were saying, but there was a lot of talk about synthesis and people who were still out there, and we were sort of trying to represent those people who have been out there for about 2 years and aren't coming back yet to get other stuff, but also people who don't have horizons and can't do synthesis. There was a lot of discussion around that one, and yeah, it looks like they've made a decision based on their own thoughts, but some of the feedback.
I personally think that the infinite probe thing only a good thing gameplay wise. Yeah, sure, it doesn't make too much sense in the realism, but
yeah,
let's
you're
be
going to say the I
honest.
word, aren't
Come
you?
on.
You're going to say the I word.
It's a
Yeah,
great,
it's certainly good for the gameplay, isn't it?
Immersion.
No,
it is a
no,
great
no.
solution, because don't forget, this is still a game.
Okay.
No, I don't think it's
Whatever
just
way
doing
you
any
want,
harm
we're
to the
still
gameplay.
playing
It's only
the game.
helping it, really, isn't it? As far as I can see, anyway.
I see. Okie dokie.
Yeah, no, in terms of other things, obviously the scanning of nav beacons to reveal planets that are known about. Now, the one bit I didn't get, and this is sort of going into the scenarios BGS, USS kind of thing. So yeah, so systems that are known, you can still, even if you haven't got your honkadonk, you can still scan the nav beacon. It gives people, I think, more of a reason to go and scan nav beacons. I don't know whether there are any scenarios arriving at nav beacons. I'd love to see scenarios at nav beacons when you drop into them, especially the more dangerous ones. I don't know whether there are or not, but that's the kind of place where, hey, you drop in to scan a nav beacon, there's a scenario kickoff. That'd be great.
Yeah, so same as extraction sites. Don't know if there's any there, but that's somewhere else I'd like to see scenarios occurring.
Yeah, well, I suppose the framework's in for it now. They've got some in there, and they've now got the mechanism to inject more.
We might see some stuff like they showed off in the conflict zone, because they had like in the higher ranked conflict zones, they said that they could have like side objectives. For example, like kill the cap ship, kill or protect this VIP. We might see bar the cap ship ones. We might see those arrive. Yeah.
Oh, making cap ship scenarios good again. You remember that really early video? Was it the one where
the
Karash brought friends? Was it on the launch one where Karash brought friends with him?
Yeah,
There was
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once again, there's another one. I'm hoping for scenarios that cap ships become great again, rather than just blow up some heat relays and get bored.
Oh, they need to improve the models themselves as well, because if you ever flown close enough to capital ships, oh, you're gonna notice some interesting textures there. And collision boxes as well.
Oh dear. Well, look, if scenarios come And if they do, then you'll be too busy to look at textures because you'll be busy being blown up.
Oh, don't underestimate me. Come on. Come on.
Yeah, make cap ships great again. I need that on a hat, don't I?
Oh,
I can
God.
pretend to be American then.
No, they're already quoting that now in chat, Vin. So
Oh, boy.
What's that?
they're already quoting that now. It's a thing. Make cap ships great again.
Oh, I just spotted that on the chat. That's why I quoted it. Thank you, Andre, for mentioning it. I've stolen that one shamelessly. So yeah, scenarios. Oh, go on then. What? My turn to ask a question. Go on then, Yamiks. If you wanted a scenario you've not seen before, one that you'd really look forward to, if it existed, what scenario would fit in with how you play?
Okay, scenario for the great and powerful one. Let's see. The scenario would involve.
Dead Horse Adventure.
Fuck it. Yeah, let's say a mystery of the dead horse.
Scoop up animal meat before the other ships can do so.
No, let's call it the exercise equipment. Okay, so first things first. So you arrive in an unidentified signal source. Oh wait, no. Better yet. Let's start. The start should be rather random, right? So you have done a couple of missions and you're just farting about in space, like more or less what my stream is doing right now. And suddenly you get a mysterious message of a investigation thingamajig, and well, it would be at least marked somewhat differently, so you know that it's a unique one rather than the bog standard random RNG just spawned garbage. So you would know not to delete it. Okay, so that's the first thing. Okay, this mysterious message would tell you to go to a specific place on the planet. You investigate and scan a couple of things that involve, voice-acted logs and whatnot else. And so you're led to perhaps even a space outpost where you, well, I don't know, you could be asked to maybe even break in if need be, or, well, attack it if you want to go for brute force to get the black box or something like that, and then deliver it to, I don't know, one of the engineers, for example. This engineer tells you that, there's some information about some alien stuff, but this information is, maybe more acquired in one of the old Inara bases or something like that. Then you go to one of the Inara bases and you are ambushed suddenly by rather skillful and well-decked out ships. So you need to engage in combat because, I enjoy combat. And so you fight them off, you go down to the... Well, yeah, it would be pretty neat if the battle would take either in an ice ring or near the planet's surface, or more or less the planet's surface, with ships and so on and so forth. And there would be either installation in space, in the rocky ice ring, or, ice ring in general, whatever. And, let's see. In this installation you learn of... I don't know, some sort of Targoid shenanigan, or some more, thing that we haven't discovered. I don't know, Raxel or something, involved at a quest or something. That'd be kind of interesting, to have a multi-stage fucking quest, which technically should be possible in this fucking game. Because guess what, we have missions, we have chained missions, we have voice-acted stuff, and we have... all sorts of tools, and yet they are never really used. And yet when I asked one of the devs, I'm gonna spare his blushes and whatnot else, but the answer was no, we're not looking into making fucking quests. Which is the answer I was given when asked whether or not there would be quests in Elite Dangerous, what you would normally know from, different games. And that's disappointing, but... that would be the sort of a scenario, prolonged quest or whatnot else that I would like to see. A little bit more longer endeavor, rather than just a random little battle that can be repeated in X amount of times. So, I don't know. Did that answer your question?
So quite a long and involved bunch of steps then. Yeah.
You're talking about an evening's worth of missions in multi-steps on a time.
Why not? In a way, you are asked to do different things within the game with different tools and with different approaches, which, again, for example, in many other games, in well, the world, the internet, yeah? You are given multiple quests that, well, oftentimes you cannot finish that quickly. And, well, having some sort of a goal to come back to play through, for me would be kind of incentive, especially if it would be unique to the game rather than randomly generated for the X amount of times, for me especially.
Yamiks, wouldn't a scenario like that better be given in a specific place, like with the Ramtar missions?
Yeah, Ramtar missions aren't the best ones to mention as a good example, but
I'm just
yes,
using
yeah,
it as
you're
a,
right.
like you dock somewhere and then you're given the thing instead of, because if it's random trucking about in space, you could have the case with the unidentified signal sources we have now, that you fly around all evening and nothing shows up.
Yeah, the
And
quest
that would be a waste of time.
starter would be well, if you were to design things properly, then you would have to sort of make sure that no matter what the player does at some specific point after some specific time, the thing that you designed to happen would happen, rather than having it randomly appear. So yes, I'd say after, I don't know, reaching, let's say, I don't know, mostly harmless level of combat, you'd get that mission. Or when you reach the mostly harmless, scout in exploration and some other random trade rank, then you would get that mission or something like that. Again, there are many ways to introduce these missions, and of course, if I were to design a thing, I wouldn't really just go off my top of my head and just design it like some other things in this game seem to be. But I'd actually sit down and write down and think about these things. But, yeah.
Okay.
So I think Vin, you're just thinking of some ideas potentially with the BGS.
Well, it's related to, I suppose, our topic this evening, BGS and scenarios.
Yes.
There've been a lot of grumbles around the Thargoid attack stations. That at the moment they don't seem to be too tied to the BGS. They've got their own little rescue missions where you can go and, enter a burning building and save people and look heroic. But then you've got sort of wedding barges flying around in the system, forgetting their vows all at the same time as they're supposedly under attack by Thargoids. So I'm hoping with this overhaul, and they've deliberately, they sort of skirted over, said, well, there are other states. When they started talking about Outbreak, I think Adam, or other Adam was talking about, and there are other states. I am wondering whether they have actually got a state for has been burnt by Thargoids state that generates content in USS's relevant to has been attacked by Thargoids. And of course, then the BGS. So that's also the BGS and not quite factions related thing, but that's the sort of behind the scenes simulation on if there are other stations in that system that maybe haven't been attacked. Are they going to be generating missions and rewards based on a Thargoid related thing? I mean, I'm hoping they're going to bring a bit more life to those Thargoid attacked areas in the game. That would be really, really nice. And also scenarios based on the Thargoids. Because the moment you drop into the non-human signal sources, and there are just little thuckers, and I said thuckers with a TH, flying around shooting you. I think one of them may have just attacked Obsidian.
Yeah, that blew me up, little gits.
Yeah, there you go. But those little fuckers that attacked you there, I mean, wouldn't it be great if there were some Thargoid-based scenarios so that they brought that whole thing to life rather than, oh, look, there's an enemy. Let's blow it up.
It'd be ideal.
Currently.
Yeah, something that needs to be done. And
little side missions to scoop the hearts, or that actually give you a reason to do it other than just cashing in and getting eroded from the inside.
Yeah. So in same reason of making use of the other Thargoid assets they've got, like the Thargoid bases, getting little scenarios down on those places won't be bad if you just turned up there and there's a chance that something could happen, or you get involved.
Obsidian, Palin had its own unique missions about the whole Thargoid bases, where you were asked to go and fetch some Thargoid jizz from their planet thing and bring back for monies.
Yeah, but okay, that was a one
those
manually
scenarios.
inserted one. But if they've then, through the new stuff they're putting in, they've created states and the generation of scenarios in USSs that mean that can become a little more procedurally generated, so there's more of it rather than just a manually inserted Remtar.
Exactly,
That'd be nice. That'll give more flavour to those. What is it? 64 systems that were attacked, of which 47 were defended and 16 are repaired. There you go, by Operation IDA.
Off the top of your head.
Off the top of my head, I only broadcast it last night, so I should remember.
Yeah.
But the I mean, it'd be great if there was a little more related to the Thargoids in there as well. So it's not just the human factions involved. It's these. Okay, there aren't any really Guardian things out there yet, apart from the big structures in space and the Tony Robinson special series of small walls and pottery. But I would love to see the Thargoid thing be more scenario based and more BGS based, so you can see what you're doing when you're fighting off the Thargoids, maybe defending a system against one of these eagle-eye predicted attacks. If you get the little sliders on the side to see how well you're doing, that will really help and make that more involved for the people who are, was it AXI, that player group who are
Yes, they are the anti-Xeno initiative.
That's the one. Yeah. So I'm hoping the things that Adam sort of hinted there were more in the game, more states that he didn't mention. I'm really hoping that there's something to do with the Thargoids in there to bring us more into that story.
Well, one thing they've brought in oh god, was it? It was one of the chapters of Beyond was on the system map. You now have the Thargoid and Guardian civilizations as checkboxes.
That was the chapter 1, I think.
Chapter 1 was it? Yeah. And on top of that, I also noticed they were listed as a section in a number of areas on the Codex, not just the lore sections that we saw on the live stream last week. Now, I don't know if you noticed that as well.
I missed that personally.
My impression.
I missed that one. Unfortunately, I was script writing at the time.
Oh, okay.
Slipped by me as well.
They were mentioned in a couple of areas, so it's it's pretty clear that the game may well be tracking them on some level. So yeah, if they were scenarios at some point or a background simulation aspects, that'd be pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, not quite having Thargoids as a faction. That would probably be going a step too far. We've officially registered as an electoral faction in this system, and we're going to, probe you and suck out your brains.
Hey,
with a mug shot.
The game
I mean, they couldn't be any more
no.
ugly. They couldn't be any more ugly than the current mission givers, could they? But no, it'd be quite nice to see those progress bars. There's nice little progress bars about how well you're doing defending off against Thargoids, saving a station. That'd be quite nice, yeah.
Right.
But I've got this is my crystal ball wish list now. We're into on the BGS and scenario stuff and planetary stuff. I think you mentioned it briefly there, Obsidian. I haven't seen anything about whether scenarios extend down to planets yet.
No, that's my.
I'm kind of hoping they
as
do.
well. I mean, we haven't even in the 2 live streams. We haven't seen it down on planetary surfaces yet. I don't believe, have we?
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the probing,
I think they've
find more things like geysers and volcanic vents, but I've not seen much for the people who love driving around yet.
No, but even in the exploration live stream, they showed how to find the POIs, but they didn't go down there to show anything off.
It does seem like they're focusing more on the space aspect with this update than the planetary side.
Yeah.
Someone said planet side. Oh my!
Especially since the new ice textures got held back. Held back.
Oh, cue all the speculation. Yeah.
Did that ever say anything about the rock scatter system? I don't remember if that was connected to.
They did say
the
something
worlds.
about it, but might be some updates on it. But honestly, I mean, anything can be better than what we got now. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, on the planetary side of things, you've got these beautiful cities. I mean, the designs, if you've actually driven around some of them, they spent a lot of time on these assets down on planets. I know they have on the mega ships and installations too, but they've spent so much time designing, not the little bases, but the really big cities. And it's such a pity we haven't got anything yet in them. So I'm not knocking them. This is me wishful thinking again. I really hope that's in the plan somewhere, that this scenario extends down to, the cities they've created. It doesn't need atmospheric planets, that kind of thing. What we've got, we need more in there, more interactivity on planet side as well. But once again, not knocking them. That's just wishful thinking.
Well, Alex City, the one in Mercury, city you're talking about. These are the big ringed cities, for those of people who haven't seen them.
They've got roadways. Have you ever got off in your
road-
SRV at a engineer base and driven around?
No, there's roadways around them. and everything, isn't
Plenty.
there? Yeah.
Really
The
good.
jarring gaming typical thing of seeing assets being just plopped on top of another asset and not really, well, looking apart is a jarring experience and takes off my immersion. And
That's three goes on that. That's bingo now, I'm sure.
Oh, okay. Yay.
It's waterboarding, not immersion now. If you get over 3.
Oh, I see. Oh my. Okay, I probably should curb that in that case. But
yeah, sorry. I mean, I'm getting into sort of. We're talking about the scenarios, but yeah, I'm getting into all the what ifs, and I mean, there is so much they can inject. But hopefully, look, the mechanism's there. They've chucked a load of mega ships and installations in. By the way, I looked up while we were talking here. It's in Alpha Centauri B1. Is the installation in Alpha Centauri? There you go. And there's one of the CQC assets just over there. So we're hoping for something, yeah, on scenarios of that installation. It's going to be one of the first things I look at in beta to see whether we get any fun scenarios.
It was one of the Adams, I can't remember which one, on the live stream. They did say that the assault scenarios that are on mega ships will eventually be coming to the installations as well. But I don't think they're there.
Oh, so that's a future thing. Okay.
Yeah, but he said future thing, but I don't know whether he meant sort of like just after beta or further down the road.
Let's just. I've got the notes.
Kind of, they just weren't switched on.
Got the notes up here from them. Scenarios. Each scenario voice acted. Yes. Bespoke UI. Yes. Some of the new scenarios include stranded pilots, conflict zones, megaships, and installations are listed in their own notes.
Yeah. There is scenarios around them. I just don't know if the assaults were one of those. Not initially. I'm pretty sure I remember them saying not straight off the bat.
Oh, one of the other things about the background, so I'm just looking at the their notes on those megaships that they've injected into the next version. These roving megaships look like, I think they're going to be, when they land in a system, tied to the system owner or to the faction who owns the system. So you're going to have sort of randomly spawning. Randomly, they're on routes. Megaships arriving in your systems, which will actually have attack and defend scenarios that will affect your BGS.
Yeah, wasn't the sorry, interrupting you, jumping on there. Didn't they say that the faction will be responsible for, or the dominant faction will be responsible for protecting them?
Absolutely. Yep. That could be fun. So imagine some message boards going up. Hey, look, it's in whatever system this is now. Let's all go there and blow it up. If you're being mean to a certain faction.
Yeah, well, that brings more life, doesn't it? And I think that's one of the things that they really want to focus on with Chapter 4, just making the galaxy feel more alive and more dynamic. Yeah.
I'm glad they've made it so it's not permanent in there, so you haven't got a bit like the... I mean, there are all the complaints at the moment about the orange Sidewinder, the Lave Sidewinder, being a target, because it's permanently there. It is possible to go and target it and use it as a focal point for bad activity. Now, how much of that's true and how much is whining, we don't know, but it's certainly true that it's permanently there and you can't blow it up. And we know people have done that. Whether there are more efficient ways of attacking Lave Radio, we have no idea, but I know certain player groups have been doing that. So it's quite nice that they've considered that, and these megaships aren't permanent. They're moving around, so they will enter other people's space. So they have considered the effect of these scenarios.
It's going to become one of those things that some people are dreading to happen and other people are going to be really excited for. You know, is it going to be us?
Megaships and being excited about things. Oh, that reminds me of another event. Recent event.
Possibly know what one you're talking about there.
Oh no, that's
the awesome battle that we had to actually help all the explorers lift off from that megaship because they were stuck there by Thargoids attacking, and we had to send wings of ships so the explorers could flip and escape. That was brilliant.
That was good fun. Like, I shot my fair share of Thargoids then and helped some lovely people escape.
Commander Wotherspoon of the Galnet News Digest got stranded on a pad with no weapons, and we had to get him off the pad somehow. I think he got blown up, but we had good fun trying to rescue him anyway.
The game telling you basically get fucked. Wasn't that a great day, huh?
Yeah, Tharg the Mighty giving two fingers to everybody saying, ha ha ha, you thought you were coming for science. And think again, guys.
You were now my dinner.
Anyway, can I be utterly shameless and mention something that's going on in 2 weeks that's not related to BGS and...
Well, you're a guest and
scenarios?
you were
Yeah, no, go
invited,
for it.
so
I was-
yes.
No, I mean,
about
you asked
to
me as a
bring
guest
something
and
up
I've
and
done
ask
most
you.
of the talking. So I hope
I
nobody
see.
minds
That's
me
one
wishing
of
you
the-
well.
That's why you're here, actually.
Right, yeah, exactly. That's why
Yeah.
you're,
Oh, that's
I was going to ask you about that.
Well, on the 11th of next month, we've got 14 of the Hutton Truckers are actually for charity going to be cycling up a real volcano. We found 3,718 meters worth of volcano to climb without an SRV, and 14 of us are going over to Tenerife, and we're attempting to get to the top under our own steam. But we're also organising an in-game event on that day. Funnily enough, the mountain we're going up, the volcano we're going up, is called Teide, Teide, and we found that Teide actually exists as a planet in-game, Teide A, which is in the Magic MAGEC system, and we're organising a big get-together and a race up the top of a mountain in-game throughout the day on the 11th, to which you're all cordially invited.
Huh.
There
Very
is
nice.
a
That's
forum
what it
thread about it. There's a Discord
be-
channel about it, and yeah, we're streaming all day. So we've got Hello, it's Colo. I think Obsidian, you've done a few bits for us as well. Psycho Cow and the Hutton Truckers are going to be streaming it. The Buckyball Racers, Alec Turner is supporting it and helping me run the day as well, because I'm going to be up the volcano, so he's helping marshal the whole day. And we've got lots of player groups coming to join us, trying to clock the fastest solo time and team time to the top of the mountain. And we've actually got a couple of trophies we're giving away for the fastest times, and streaming all day in aid of charity. But other than that, we're just building our own little voice-acted scenario for the day.
Yeah, I might have phased out there, but did you mention which charities?
Well, it is Special Effect and Hearing Dogs. So the two charities that Hutton supports, we're splitting all the money raised 50-50 between the two. Hearing Dogs are actually the organisation, the charity that provided Alvin, our faction leader, to Commander Snoz, who's one of the founding team of Hutton Orbital, and they provide assistance dogs for those who are either deaf or hard of hearing to help them. And also Special Effect, I think you'll know them and the great work that they do. So we're splitting it 50-50 between those two, as we always do. And we've got quite a big target to hit. But worst case, turn up, have fun. Best case, turn up, have fun, and help us raise money. There you go.
Yeah, so a couple of people asking if I can put some links about that in the video description. I'll have them there in just a moment, so you can go along to the forum post and check all the details out. That's pretty much got everything you'll need to know, and I'll be covering some of this in the upcoming days as well. So
And well,
plenty of
thank you very much. I know it's a shameless plug from us, but we're hoping we survive the top of the volcano. It is actually an active volcano, albeit not sort of molten lava active, but sulfur vents and things. So we're going to try and see if we can get ourselves into orbit by jumping on a sulfur vent.
Not a salt volcano then.
No, not a big pile of salty tears.
Aww.
I was about to say I'm waiting for the disappointed Yamiks.
Right, well, guess we're kind of running out of steam throughout the whole fucking 2 hours, so might as well recap what pretty much we discussed in, quick terms, I suppose, and I guess that'll be it for the evening. So, well, I guess we start off with basically just BGS stuff. So, the news in BGS. I don't remember what those were, so please someone help me.
Okay, so news in BGS was the Frontier are bringing changes to Chapter 4 that are going to make the whole background simulation, and for those of you that joined a bit early on, the background simulation is basically a simulation of all of civilization within the galaxy, and players can influence this in one way or another. And up until now, that's been pretty opaque. It's not really been that clear. A bunch of people have worked it out over the years, but it's been, I think, a bit of a hard slog for them to do so. But with the new changes, it's going to be a lot clearer as to what's going on there. So that will be with scenarios and various interface changes. You'll be able to know exactly how you can get involved and what sort of impact your actions are having on civilization, as it were. So there's that. And the new scenarios, which are kind of a part of that as well. So they demonstrated an assault on megaships and a bunch of other smaller scenarios as well, where you can help people out out around the galaxy, or opposite and not help them out, hinder them. So there's that. And we had on today a couple of guests. We had Vin from Hutton Truckers and Orange Spark from the Galactic Academy, and I'd like to thank you both for taking the time to come along. I think you shared a lot of great information there, and kept it pretty interesting for everyone.
Usually you don't get this much information in one stream. Usually we just bicker.
Everyone turns
And
up
you
for
only
the
said the
arguing.
I word 3 times.
Oh, well, you know. Now I'm tempted to do more, but that would be just nah, that would be just lame. Right, carrying on.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me and putting up with me on my soapbox. So, thank you.
No, it's been a pleasure. It's been good. So I think Paroxsym is still there. Are you, Paroxsym? I haven't heard much.
Yep, still here.
Not dead,
Paroxsym's
Jim.
still there, and
Not dead yet.
TheYamiks as always. I'm going to be streaming a little bit longer when we end this part.
So will I.
Yeah, same
Right.
here.
So yeah, when we stop talking here, don't disappear, because we'll be around.
Oh, can I disappear?
also-
I'm supposed to be going to the pub.
Oh,
They're
disappear
not
into the
talking to
pub.
you.
Yeah, I was like,
be
you
gone.
can go to the pub. Yeah, go on, go on, get
Go.
Be gone, tot.
Shoo.
then,
So yeah, thank you, and I guess we'll catch you next time.
Next Friday for another, hopefully another. Actually, no, we have the beta coming out on 30th, so it'll be perfect
Yeah,
for
it's on
us to talk
Tuesday.
about. Holy shit. Okay, so
Yeah,
next
that's a big
Friday
talk
will be
about.
big.
Isn't the next
big,
live
big.
stream about squadrons of mining?
Yes.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have
But,
someone.
but before that, we already get release of beta, so yeah,
we'll
it's
see.
gonna
We'll
be a
have other
bit.
stuff. Yeah, might be a 6-hour stream.
We'll see. We'll see about that.
Yeah.
And
Right,
then
thanks for the link
20th
there.
of November is the interview with Will Flanagan. But yeah,
Okay, so everyone, your
that's the only
channel.
other thing. Man.
So,
Shameless
so tell us a bit more
self-promo.
about that, Paroxsym, just so everyone knows.
Go.
Okay, on the 20th of November, Will Flanagan from Frontier will be on my Twitch channel for an interview about all things Chapter 4. So I actually have a Google form for user-submitted questions. For that, let me see if I can get the freaking link up here. There it is. Let me copy-paste into the thing so you guys can distribute it if you want. It's going in the channel there. So if you guys have questions that you would like to have answered about Chapter 4, yeah, just fill out the Google form, submit them by midnight on the 11th of November, and yeah, we'll attempt to answer as many of them as possible.
Okay, brilliant.
That'll
Thank
be
you. And,
20th of November at 1800 UTC is when
is
that's
there a
happening.
link in that form to your channel so everyone can find it in case they need that?
Yeah, I just put the
Answer
Google
is
form.
no.
Raise-
There is no
No.
link for it.
But there will be.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Okay. So I think that's where we're going to wrap it up then.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
I'd say.
So thanks again to everyone, and see you soon.
Okay, bye.
See you guys, and thanks for joining in. See ya next Friday.
Bye.
Bye now.
And so, now we are alone, I think. Yes, we are. Certainly alone. Now, first things first, of course, thanks for all the people watching and all that stuff. Let me check. Did anyone do the generous thing and do the tip thing? Give me a sec. And I think, yes, Guero Marinero there was a bit generous today. New missions that don't pay, yay. I'm not sure about the new missions, whether or not the new scenarios will pay and what else. Will they be actually just as worthless as the current unidentified signal sources, or will they be more useful? Well, again, who the fuck knows, but keep your expectations low, I'd say. Right after that, let's see. Oh, and I got a new patron there as well, so welcome, Phil. And, oh, hey, if any of you guys haven't subscribed to the YouTube, followed on the Twitch, and of course, checked out the Patreon, if you are inclined to support the content that I make, well, feel free to do so. And well, I guess that'll be it for the Friday. Well, really, there's not much else to be said. I mean, when it comes down to BGS in general, I'd say there will be changes. YamiKs doesn't particularly care about these changes, because YamiKs just simply doesn't do BGS. So, yeah. Sorry, can't really go in depth on it because, well, yeah, I'm just one of those people that don't really do that much BGS at all. Well, actually, at all. So there is that. But hey, maybe one day, someday, right? Right. That aside, of course, the scenarios. Basically, in my eyes, scenarios will be just fleshed out, unidentified signal sources. That's about it. I mean, it might be good, but I'd prefer basically fixing the game, fixing the fucking... Oh, literally, fixing and properly developing the fucking multicrew, right? As much of a broken and useless piece of shit multicrew is, it's a part of the game and it needs fixing. And, yeah. Right, but that aside, well, yeah, I guess that would be about it for the stream today. So tune in next week for the Friday for the roundtable, or I don't know, I might actually stream tomorrow since I will have actually time for that stuff and so on and so forth, or day after that. We'll see how busy or not busy I am. We'll see. In any case, check the channel. I will try to schedule it in proper times and whatnot else. But, we'll see. Right, well, I guess that's about it. You guys take care of your Friday, and I will see you, as I said, one of these following 3 days, at least once.